توجه إلى الله, turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So do Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Begin in the name of Allah, we praise Allah. We ask Allah Him to bless Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He's the door of all khair and door of all purification. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ask Allah for sincerity and ask Allah for openings and Ya Allah. So we've covered, we started, the first session was, and setting the kind of foundations, so to speak, of what do we mean when we talk about the heart and the soul and the ruh and all these things. And the second session, last session, was the idea of purification. What can I remember the three obstacles on the path that we talked about? What are the three things which are we're struggling against? The nafs, dunya, shaitan. So try and keep these in mind. The nafs, the dunya, and shaitan. What were the three sicknesses that we looked at? Remember? Kibr, riya, and hasad. Yeah. We may not remember all the details, but if we keep that kind of framework of and it's very useful for Ramadan as well. All these things are just. So there's the idea of what's called takhalli, tazkiyah, that we talked about last time. And sometimes we kind of restrict tasawwuf almost to that. It's also about purification, but we don't talk about the other side, which is the beautification, what's called tahalli. So Imam Ghazali, a lot of what the methodology we're using is a methodology of Imam Ghazali. And just as in fiqh, we have schools, we have methodologies, and they don't necessarily, they have different approaches. They all agree on the core things. They just have different ways of approaching it, and different things they emphasize more than others, and different techniques. But it's all the same. It's all the same, really. So if we're following the methodology of Imam Ghazali, generally speaking, and he, in his great work, he has here in Medina, he has in the third quarter, he has the rub'ul muhlikat, the destructive tendencies. But at the beginning of that, he defines the nafs and the qalb, which we did basically. He has this whole book of nine books on purification, basically. Eight. And then he has but not to neglect the fourth quarter, which is, so it's called the rub'ul munjiyat, the saving graces, the saving qualities. And he goes into the things that we need to attain. So it's not just all about, if you can clean out, but what are you actually replacing it with? We're talking about purifying the soul. What are we actually putting into the soul? That's really what the discussion. This is basically the structure that he follows. And we're going to, inshallah, briefly go through these saving qualities. Sometimes they're called the stations of maqamat al-yaqeen. Sometimes they're called the munjiyat. But these are basically what we need to think about. Beginning with repentance, tawbah. Then we have fear and hope. We have fortitude and gratitude, sabr and shukr. We have renunciation, which is zuhd. We have reliance, which is tawakkul. And we have these, almost the end goal, really. The 8 and 9 is this muhabba and rida, love of Allah and contentment with Allah, from Allah. And it's not like we get through number 1, then move on to number 2. It's not like that, because you're constantly engaging with all of them all the time. And there's a beginning and there's no end. Like with all these things, like with taqwa, there's a beginning and there's no end. You know, it's an ongoing process. It's not like I'm done, I'm finished with taqwa, I'm going to move on to it. It's like taqwa is the Prophet ﷺ, even the Prophet is being elevated in these ranks of taqwa and so on and so on. So these are things to, and they're not sort of abstract things. They're things we should be constantly engaging with and thinking about what they mean to us. Again, especially with Ramadan. These are all, Ramadan is all about these things coming back to Allah. The balance of fear and hope. You know, incredible hope that Allah has promised all these incredible things and the doors of Jannah are open, but there's still that fear that perhaps I'm not sincere in what I'm doing. Perhaps what's the guarantee that my fast has been accepted? What's the guarantee that everything is all rosy? You know, then this sabr, which is Ramadan, is the month of sabr. You know, and shukr. It's also, you know, it's also the month of shukr. It's a month of zuhud. It's a month of this renunciation, of letting go, of clearing out. You know, it's a month of reliance, and it's the month of mahabbah, of love and contentment, and all these things. So, and so is every other month of the year. But Ramadan is especially poignant. These things are especially poignant. We feel these things more. So be conscious of these things as we go through, inshallah. So we're just going to very briefly, and this also connects to another way of looking at these states or these things, which is who are the people that Allah loves. Allah announces in the Quran that He truly loves 7 categories of people. Okay, and they're not exactly the same as these 9, but some of them are. What are the 7 categories, or at least some of them? The muhsineen. Who are? Who said that? Yeah. Who are the muhsineen? We talked about ihsan already. Yeah, muhsineen. The people who do ihsan. Yeah. What else? Who else? Mutawakkilin. Yes, the ones who Allah loves the mutawakkilin. Allah loves the ones, the people who put their trust in Him. What else? Tawwabin. Mutatahhirin, the dua we make when we finish wudu. Allahumma ja'alna min at-tawwabin wa ja'alna min al-mutatahhirin. Make us amongst the people who not just make tawbah, but constantly make tawbah, constantly return to Him. So that's 4. Got 3 more to get. They're not in this. What else? Mutawakkilin, muhsinin, tawwabin, mutatahhirin. Salihin, Allah, you know, they're not specifically. Allah loves the Salihin, of course, but it's not one of the categories. It's not to say that. What else? Sabirin is one. In Allah yuhibbu sabirin. He loves the sabirin. He loves the muttaqeen. He loves the people of taqwa. He loves the people of the tawakkul got them. He loves the people of sabr. He loves the mutatahhirin. He loves the muhsinin. And there's one more which is al-muqsitin, the people of justice, the just. Allah yuhibbu al-muqsitin. So again, these are things really. Let's make these let's ask for these things. Let's interact with these things. Let's think about these things, because Allah announces in His book for all time that He loves these people. Do not want to be from those people. And when we make the dua after wudu, Allah make us ja'alna min at-tawwabin mutatahhirin. What we're really saying is, Allah make us amongst the mahbubin, make us amongst people that you love, who constantly. I mean, what beautiful quality! Someone who constantly comes back to Allah at every state and constantly seeks to purify themselves. Constantly this process of purification, which is everything we're talking about, basically. But we're going to go we're going to go to this through these 9 stations very briefly. Each one of them is a book. You know, Imam Ghazali writes 100 pages about each of them, but we're going to cover them in a few minutes each. Just an introduction, but the first one is Tawbah. Tawbah, and they say why they begin with Tawbah, because that's the first step on the path to Allah. You know. And whatever state you're in, again, it's not restricted to having done terrible wrongs or committed anything. It's a constant. We're constantly invited and we need we feel that need to come back to Allah constantly. And if Allah places some kind of feeling in your heart, Allah, that to come back to Him, then that's Allah, Him manifesting Himself as one of His names is At-Tawwab. One of the names of Allah is At-Tawwab, the one who constantly turns to us so that we can turn to Him. So which comes first? Like when you make dua, yes, I'm asking for certain things, but who put that inspiration in your heart to make dua? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? It's like who inspired you to make a certain dua, ask for a certain thing? Imam Ibn Ata'illah says, if Allah has inspired you to ask, then know that He wants you to give. He wants to give you that thing. He inspires you to ask because He wants you to get that thing. So it's if Allah inspires you to make tawbah, it's because He wants you to come back to Him. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. So just internally, inshallah, just make that. Just make that turning to Allah to come back to Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Leaving behind everything but Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Allah, Ya Tawwab, tub alayna warhamna wandur ilayna. Allah says, Taba alayhim liyatubu. And He turned to them so that they might turn to Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Surah At-Tawbah, there's a whole chapter called Surah At-Tawbah. So just briefly, Allah truly loves those that constantly turn to Him in repentance. He loves those who seek to purify themselves. Another verse, believers, all of you, turn to Allah so that you may prosper. Tubu ilallahi ayyuhal mu'minun la'allakum tuflihun. And the one who repents or one who turns away from a sin is as he who has done nothing. That's the beauty of Allah's relationship with us. Constantly offering that erasure, that wiping out, and even more than that. And if you love someone, you hate to upset them. You really love your parents. You really don't want to do something that upsets them. If you love Allah, you don't want to do something that is displeasing to Him. And there's so many beautiful stories and narrations. There's a beautiful book called Heart's Turn. Yeah, Heart's Turn. If you get a couple of years ago, the author came, Harun Sugic, and introduced his book. It's a real work of beauty. He just goes into all these different stories. And a lot of them are conversion stories, people recently, and then some of the stories of the Salaf. That's the richness of our tradition. People who are like robbers and bandits and criminals, and they had 180 degrees turn and came back to Allah and became awliya. Not just they made tawbah, they became the elect of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the beauty of our tradition. That doesn't matter who you are, where you are, you can become. Don't stop at like just. Great, goodness and righteousness, but not just that being at the peak, and so many stories of that, it's happened. It's still happening. It happens. This is not just something in history. It's people now in prison who have done terrible crimes, who have made tawbah, and inshallah they'll become guides and awliya of Allah. That's not difficult for Allah. And Allah rejoices. Allah, He's so happy that someone makes that tawbah and comes back to Him. Just like the man in the desert in the hadith who loses his camel and he gives up and there's no point anymore. He just gives up. Just lies down under a tree and says there's no point anymore. And then he wakes up and then there's the camel right in front of him. He just, he's so overjoyed. He just loses. He says, "Oh Allah, I'm your Lord, and God, you're my servant. He kind of loses his words, But Allah is more joyful than that person finding his camel than Allah is more joyful for someone making tawbah than that man finding his camel in the desert when he's given up hope of. And there's the scholars mention there's three conditions of tawbah, and a fourth, which is the three conditions of tawbah relate to the things we've done between us and Allah, which is abandoning that wrongdoing, having remorse. The Prophet said, and nadamu tawbah. Remorse is tawbah. Just the fact that you feel a regret and a sadness and a remorse, that is the essence of tawbah. Okay, so abandoning it, having that remorse, and then resolving never to commit it again. Those are the three conditions of tawbah. If it relates to someone else's rights, then there's a fourth condition, which is harder. Okay, Allah's nature is to overlook and to forgive, but if it relates to the rights of others, then it's more complicated. It has to be more, because Allah can't be just if He overlooks the rights of, if someone's wronged you and then Allah forgives that person, forgives the wrongdoer without them redressing the rights. That's not fair. That's not justice. If it's just purely between you and Allah, Allah can overlook that. But so there has to be that element of redressing that. And the signs of sincere tawbah, the softness of the heart, weeping, adhering to, and then it's acting upon that is adhering to obedience, actively leaving those places and the companions that will be harmful to you, basically. And so that's the first station of tawbah. There's always a sign of sincerity of any of these stations. You'll find is some kind of action. It's not just that tawbah will lead you to make active changes in your life. That's a sign of its acceptance and a sign of sincerity. So you do what you can to rule out those things, those negative influences, whatever it may be. Softness of the heart is something it's harder to kind of measure, but actively making changes, that is measurable. And then we have two stations which come together, and they're like the two wings of the bird, hope and fear, khawf and raja, and they balance each other. We have to have both. Okay, we have to have this balance between hope and fear, and Allah brings them together in the Quran when He describes the prophets and the Salihin. That they hope for His mercy and fear His torment. They call upon their Lord in fear and hope. Okay. It's a balance. And even in the Fatiha, we have two categories of people at the end of the Fatiha who pray not to be amongst them. Okay, غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. المغضوب عليهم, the archetype of the Jews who have this literal legalistic, sort of spiritless religion. It's just not, no disrespect, but it's just fulfilling the outward demands regardless of where the heart is. And then the other side is the Christian archetype. It's just all hope. There's no fear. Like they don't even, in the old days, if you went to a sermon by John Knox, it would all be like fire and brimstone and the hellfire. But never in my experience of a sermon was there ever any mention of the wrath of God or the hellfire in Christian context, because it's been airbrushed out. It's all just hope and love and believe in Jesus and you'll be saved. And you see the excessive hope and excessive, and the other side is just this kind of and then it's all based on everything. You can say everything we're talking about today revolves around our opinion of Allah. What's your opinion of Allah? One of the best things you can have is a good opinion of Allah when it comes to tawbah, when it comes to hope and fear. So we have immense hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I am as my servant thinks me to be, as my servant considers me to be. That's how I will be to him. So have that immense hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it's also tempered with that, Allah is beyond. Don't restrict him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why the more you know Allah, the more you fear him. The more conscious you are of his majesty, his greatness, and the unknown. Even though, yes, perhaps I've done everything right and obeyed, but it's not for me to say, I've got my place in paradise. I've done this. It's like there's always that fear. Allah can do what he wishes in his creation, subhanahu wa ta'ala. But as we get closer to death, it's recommended to be, we should be in a state of hope. More hope should overcome fear in the end stage of life. And we should, if we're actually in that position where you're with someone, remind them even if they've not been so good on their deen, just remind them of the mercy of Allah, remind them of the maghfirah of Allah, remind them of the beauty, the beautiful qualities of Allah. We should all meet Allah, hoping in that state of hope, because Allah, whoever loves to meet Allah, Allah loves to meet them. So what is hope? It comes with the knowledge of the heart's knowledge of the immensity of God's mercy and generosity, the magnitude of his favors and kindness, his gracious promise to those who obey him. So when we read the Quran in Ramadan, think about these things. The immensity of God's mercy and generosity, the huge magnitude of his favors and kindness, and the promise, the wa'd, the promise of what he's given to the people, that this dunya is too small and too insignificant for Allah to give us our true reward in this dunya. And it's not this realm. It's not Allah has created another realm to give you a reward. This dunya is not enough in the sight of Allah to give you a reward in this life. So this knowledge generates a state of joyous relief, which is termed hope. The intended result of which is that one hastens to acts of goodness. You see that it's a result. Look at the results. It's not just a feeling. We're not just based on feelings are beautiful and amazing and emotions, but the feeling and the emotion leads to something. That's the thing to look at. It leads to you to hasten to the pleasure of Allah, hasten to the salah, hasten to any act of goodness. Otherwise, it's a false hope. And it becomes you just even more, conscious of your relationship with him, how you perform it. And the same fear is the opposite of all that. So we have Jamal and Jalal constantly between these two things: the beauty of Allah and the majesty of Allah. Allah is Rahim and Ra'uf and Kareem, but he's also Al-Jabbar, Al-Qahar, Al-Aziz, Al-Mutakabbir. Yeah. These names should make us, shake the majesty of Allah, his might, his ghina, his al-ghani, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has no need whatsoever for any of us. It doesn't matter. Allah could just destroy the whole of humanity in an instant, and it wouldn't make any difference to him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. It doesn't need you or me. It doesn't need anything. It doesn't need the creation at all, subhanahu. It doesn't need to create anything. It's a blessing that he has created the creation. He doesn't need to create the creation. He's still Allah, regardless. He mentions, but it's a mercy that he mentions the punishments and the torments, and the iqab and so on, just to remind us that it's there. That inshallah, no one needs to even go there. Because we're in a state of awe of Allah that we don't even think about that. We think about it, but we don't think about even going near that. And then again, what does this knowledge generate? It generates a state of apprehension, which is called fear. Term fear. The intended result of which is that it leads you to do something again. A fear which doesn't have any effect on you is not a genuine fear. There needs to be results That it leads you to abandon wrongdoing, it needs you to guard yourself against it. It stops you from going into that state of disobedience. It helps you, protects you from pride, all these things as well. And he says it's not there. Any hope or fear which does not lead to adherence to obedience and the renunciation of resurrection is illusion and folly. For the one who really hopes for something seeks it, and the one who really fears something flees from it. If you're really scared of something, you run away from it. There has to be an internal movement that comes as a result of these states. But there's two extremes. We have this balance. That we don't go to one extreme or the other. The one extreme is despairing of it. There's so much fear that there's no hope left, and it's just despair. There's no point anymore. I'm sunk. I'm lost. I'm terrible. It's all gone. It's all. That's what Shaitan wants us to do. That Shaitan himself has despaired at the mercy of Allah. There's no hope, and the other extreme is feeling it's an extreme hope that there's nothing to worry about. I'm good. I'm a complacency. I'm good. I'm going to be in paradise. Whatever. It's all So there has to be this balance, not to one extreme or the other. And I think Sayyidina Umar said, radiallahu anhu, that this is the pinnacle of hope and the pinnacle of fear. He said, if there was a voice that called out that only that only one person will enter paradise, I would hope that I'd be that one person. And then if there was a voice that called out that everyone will enter paradise except one person, I would fear to be that one person. Is that right? Got it right? Yeah. So and in spite of, and again, these people, when we look at them, they're, like Sayyidina Umar and others, they've been promised paradise. But how did they just sit back and, imagine you're told by the infallible Prophet of Allah that you have your place in paradise is guaranteed. How would you react? You'd think you just relax a bit, take it easy. It's all good. I'm good. But no, that made them he's made it even more fearful and hopeful. Even strive even harder, go even further. It's actually a test. It's a test to be told that. It's like you're going to pass the exam with flying colors. Imagine you had a dream at the beginning of the term. You're going to pass your PhD, or when you do that, would you? Most people would just sit back and not do any work, because it's guaranteed. But that's not how they were. In fact, he's at every janazah, whenever someone dies in Medina, he's asking, "Am I?" He's asking Hudayfa, radiallahu anhu, "Am I one of the munafiqeen?" Am I? Because he would, if there was a janazah, Hudayfa wouldn't pray upon the munafiqeen. That was one of the ways they knew. He's still conscious. Hudayfa was given this knowledge. He said, "Hudayfa, am I one of the munafiqeen?" The Prophet has told you you're from the people of Jannah. It's like, what more do you want? But there's not a shred of complacency. That's why they are who they are. They are who they are. And the Prophet taught him a dua that he said, "I'm going to say that Allah make my inward better than my outward, and make my outward upright and good. Focus on Umar, focus on this, on your heart." And he learnt in those years that he spent with the Prophet ﷺ. You can actually, almost him more than anyone else, you can see that progression of different state. And he would come back. He was like, "I've done some work. How am I doing?" A Prophet saying, "Not yet. You need to do it." But you can see that almost training going on, more than perhaps with some other companions. So moving on to sabr, fortitude. It's one of these amazing words that no English word can do justice to. Sometimes it's translated patience, or it's sabr. It's sabr. We live in this dunya. There's always going to need to be sabr, to have sabr, because that's the nature. Dunya doesn't agree with us. We're always going to be clashing against things, and things aren't going to go our way. things aren't going to be agreeable. So it's that struggle. Allah says, وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الصَّابِرِينَ. إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الصَّابِرِينَ. Seek help with fortitude and prayer. So felicity depends on attaining nearness to God, which in turn depends on always following the truth and avoiding falsehood. The nafs isn't going to like this. It's not going to be happy if you're going against, because it wants easy. It wants an easy ride. It wants the path of least resistance. It wants just gratification, and that's not the way to Allah, basically. So the nafs won't. It's going to be this conflict. It's going to be a burning. It's going to be some kind of friction. It's going to be difficult. And that's what. And Ramadan is again this. There's a friction. There's a burning. It's not easy. We're tested, but we're told to be patient. And we're training. As I said, we're training ourselves, going against the nafs. So there are. The scholars mentioned 3 or sometimes 4 types of sabr. What do we, when we think of sabr, what's the first thing we think of? In what situation do you need sabr? When you're angry, that's part of it, definitely. What's the first thing you think of? Inna lillahi inna ilayhi raji'un. We think of that when someone's passed away, having sabr. Yeah, that's the first. So sabr and al-qada, having patience with Allah's decree that something unpleasant has happened, something sad has happened. We have sabr. Okay, that's the first thing. Pleasant and patient endurance of unpleasant things. Okay, but there are actually 2 other types of sabr. What are they? What other types of sabr we have to have? I don't know. What kind of sabr do we use what do we have in Ramadan? Waiting to open the fast, patiently persevering in that act of obedience. Okay, patiently, without getting impatient. Just that finishing the period, getting up for Fajr or for Fajr in Ramadan. It's difficult, tired. It's not as heavy, but you keep doing it day after day, day after day, day after day. And your 5 salah, it's the same thing. It requires sabr. And then the flip side is the patiently avoiding acts of disobedience. Okay, and again, Ramadan is that training us and teaching us this. There's all these invitations. Have this, you can have this, do this. We're patiently holding off. And the knowledge that what's awaiting us is greater, far greater. It's difficult. Again, the nafs is pleading, is demanding, pleading. You're saying, no, I'm not going to give you that. I'm not going to give in to it. The dunya is alluring. It's got some, so many, so much deception and delusion, and it seems so sweet. If you could just have that thing, you're going to be happy, you're going to enjoy it. But you're holding off. You're saying, no, I'm not going to do that. But everyone else has got it. Everyone else is enjoying it. Everyone else is, you're just holding on. And then shukr. Again, they come together, so they complement each other. There is an interaction, just like the interaction between fear and hope. There's an interaction between sabr and shukr, gratitude and patience. That every you could just almost flip this and apply it. Every blessing requires sabr and shukr, because it's a test of our how we respond, basically our response. This is a bit low, isn't it? No. So whatever good things you possess come from Allah. وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنْ Allah. Sure, this beautiful verse. If you tried to count God's favors, you could never calculate them. Man is truly unjust and ungrateful. Zalumun. Kafara. So we have the opposite. What's the opposite of shukr? What's the opposite of shukr? Huh? It's actually kufr. It's actually kufr. Kufr. There's kufr in the terms of which is the ultimate kufr is not recognizing Allah, but there's the other type of kufr. Other type of kufr is not acknowledging the blessings of Allah. Shukr is to acknowledge blessings of Allah. Kufr is to neglect, is to ignore or neglect or not recognize the blessings of Allah. Ingratitude, ungrateful, exactly. So admit. This verse, it tells us we can't thank him as he's worthy of being thanked. That's why Allah says, very few of my servants are truly grateful. And there's another amazing book by Imam Ghazali called the Minhaj al-Abidin, which is the path of this worshippers to Allah. And he has all these different, which some of this is taken from different challenges that you'd expect, things we talked about. The final hurdle is called the hurdle of shukr, which seems like that's easy. It's easy, anyone can do that. But that's actually, then when he goes into it, breaks down shukr, who's really grateful, who can really do justice. No one can really do justice, but who's truly grateful. It's not what you expect. It sounds like, he's gone through the nafs and the shaitan, all these different challenges. But the final hurdle is the hurdle of shukr. And you wouldn't think it's difficult, but what is the essence of shukr is the heart's awareness of there's no blessing, that every blessing is from Allah alone. And nothing comes to you through your own ability and power, only through the God's mercy, grace and mercy. This is, as we touched on before, this is a remedy for so many diseases. It's a remedy for hasad, for envy. And it's a remedy for always these comparisons that we're doing with people. It's a remedy for pride and arrogance. And then again, it requires this work to be done. Are you grateful? Are you truly grateful? Then that demands that you use that blessing. Every favor is a test in the sense: are you using it for the purpose it was given you for a reason? Allah doesn't just give things haphazardly without any purpose. Everything has a purpose. Are you using that blessing for good or not? That's the gratitude. It's like your parents raise you and they give you all these things, and then you use those blessings against them, to disobey them or to. That's ungrateful, isn't it? But even more so with Allah, He's giving you all these things. He's giving you your body, He's giving you your mind, He's giving you intellect, all the spirit, incredible potential. And what you're doing, it's like throwing them back in His face. Whereby favors turn into affliction. A favor turns into an affliction. In Arabic, we have one haraka. Ni'mah is a blessing or a favor. When you make it na'mah with a fatha, it becomes an affliction. Like Pharaoh is the classic example. Given all these power and wealth and status and control, and so every one of those blessings are actually afflictions, taking you further away from Allah. Why do you have these stories in the Quran? So like Surah Al-Kahf, one person has nothing, the other person has these gardens and very full of himself, and it's all mine, and see how you see it, so it's all yours. Okay, let's just take it away like in an instant. See how you feel. And any of us can be in that situation. Be careful. But the opposite, if you're grateful, Allah will increase you. It's a guarantee. Whatever you show gratitude for, Allah will increase you in that thing. So if you just stopped A lot of all this is just about stopping for a minute and just thinking, being present. We just enumerate, count just a few seconds. Even in a secular sense, we have kind of gratitude diaries and but we're people, we're God-centered. But if you just account of just a few things I'm grateful for today, it will increase you in those blessings immediately. But if you're not, there's always Allah can take it away, take it from you. Or he can give you more, but he's just taking you further away. But it's better to have a wake up call and be broken on your knees and come back to Allah than to be given blessing after blessing after blessing. And it's inside there's nothing. There's no recognition. There's no shukr. That's a dangerous place to be in. So that's sabr and shukr. And then we have zuhud. I have about 6 friends called Zahid. Seems to be a really popular name. There's something there with the Pakistani community, inshallah. They love the name Zahid. They had some intention there, just the one who's not attached to the dunya. That's what you're saying. If you're calling your son Zahid, you're marking them out to be someone that is not attached. And the question, this is in the 40 hadith. Ya Rasulullah, guide me, tell me something that if I do it, Allah will love me, and people will love me as well. You can have both. You can have everything. Give me something that Allah, if I do it and act upon it, Allah will love me, and also I'll be popular. It's nice to be nice. It's nice that people like you as well. This is the prophetic prescription. Renounce the dunya, renounce the worldliness, renounce that worldly attachment. Allah will love you. Because you can't have 2 loves at the same time. Either you're, loving that one or this one. And renounce what people possess. Don't squabble and compete with what people have. Then they won't see you as a threat. They'll love you. But as soon as you start, like we said last time, remember the discussion about the dunya, the metaphor of the dog, the carcass and the dogs. Either you walk past it and don't get involved, or if you get involved, the dogs are going to be biting and barking, and you'll be just joining the fray. So don't just walk past. And we talked this. Everything has this mirror. We talked about it when we talked about dunya in the last session. This is all just the same. The flip side of it. It's just renouncing the dunya, renouncing this connection, this obsession, this. And we said, remember, the dunya is a test. It's a test to see where your heart lies, your allegiance lies. Is it? And when you're put to the test, will you give up that thing which you really want for the sake of Allah? That's what. This beautiful hadith of the Prophet said, when light enters the heart, it opens up and it's yanfasih, yansharih. And they said, is there any sign of that light entering the heart? He said, yes, 3 signs. When that light of faith and that inspiration comes, you start to shun the abode. What do you call it? Dar al-ghurur, the abode of illusion. And you attend or you turn towards the abode of immortality. You just focus becomes different, and you start to prepare for death before its arrival. How do you prepare for death? How should we prepare for death? What's the best? What's what we're going to take with us? Like you talked about your father last time. How do you want to end? How would you like to? If this is your last moment or your last, what state would you want to meet Allah in? sorry, the Prophet says that when I love, actions are displayed to Allah, especially in Sha'ban, especially on Mondays and Thursdays. But I love to be fasting when my actions are displayed to Allah. Sayyidina Uthman, before he was killed in his house, stabbed in his own house in Medina, and how can you imagine the shock, the horror of that? That we told they had a dream of the Prophet ﷺ. He was fasting. He said, "Would you not like to break your fast with me in Jannah? Would you like to be with me?" Imagine meeting Allah with the Mus'haf, the Quran, in front of him, and not even raising a hand to defend himself, because he didn't want to cause. He could have called the army in and got rid of these rebels, but he didn't want to risk, the sanctity of Medina being polluted, if you want to say. He didn't defend himself. Wasn't interested. And he was the Khalifa. He was like the most powerful man in the world, basically. But he surrendered to Allah. So, inshallah. So it's a lot to take in. It's too much to do in really one session. But again, he always. This is Imam Haddad. Imam Haddad is a later scholar, Yemeni scholar who just kind of made the teachings of Imam Ghazali even more accessible and so simple. He said that the origin of renunciation is the heart's knowledge of the lowliness and significance of the world. We've talked about that already. The intended result of such knowledge is to abandon inwardly desire for the world and to abandon outwardly delighting in its pleasures. The lowest degree, everyone has to have there's a minimum level, obligatory level of zuhud that everyone has to have, which is to renounce disobedience to Allah. Every Muslim has to do that. And then there's levels and degrees. And some people also regard this within the levels of taqwa. The minimum taqwa is to renounce disbelief, and then there's to renounce disobedience, and then there's renouncing excess. And again, Ramadan is that thing of just how much do you actually need to be content. And the highest degree is that you take nothing from it unless you know that to take it is more pleasing to Allah than to leave it. Ya Rab. And it's a state of the heart. These are all states of the heart that they manifest in our deeds and our actions and our intentions so someone can be very rich, they can have everything and be zahid and be truly be non-attached, and someone can have nothing and be a lover of the dunya, can be overly attached to the dunya. Okay. So some things aren't always as they seem. Someone can be a millionaire and have very successful business, but they're just not attached. They're not just like, okay, it doesn't bother me. If it was all to be taken away, it wouldn't bother me, because I know that Allah will take care of me, and Allah's already apportioned my rizq to me anyway. And that moves on to this one, which is tawakkul. If you truly believe in Him, you trust in Him. That's the meaning of tawakkul, is taking a wakil, taking an agent. A wakil is someone you commission to do something. If you have a really important affair, you find someone I really trust. Amir, I would trust you with my affairs. I know you're going to take care of it. I know you're trustworthy. I know you can. I can relax because I've told Amir's going to do this thing for me. I know I can go to bed and not worry about what's going to happen. But what about if the wakil is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the heavens and the earth? Do you not trust that He'll take care of things in the best way possible? That's why Imam Ghazali he calls it the kitab, the book of tawakkul and tawheed. He connects the tawheed, the oneness of Allah, with the reliance on Allah. If you truly, all of these, our faith dictates that we, if you truly believe in Allah as the all-powerful and the all-knowing, and then that dictates that you trust in Him. It's just, otherwise there's some kind of disconnect. You believe in all that thing, but you don't trust Him. That's why Allah emphasizes this. Rabbul Mashriq wal Maghrib, la ilaha illahu. He's the Lord of the East and the West. There's no God but Him. فَاتَّخِذْهُ وَكِيلًا. Take him as your protector. Take him as your ally. Take him as your supporter. And Allah loves this from us. Yes. So that creates a stillness. Yeah. We don't need to stress. It will come. What's coming is coming. It doesn't mean, again, it doesn't mean we don't take the means. We still take the means. I was going to mention it in a minute. But this the beautiful metaphor of the birds, the Prophet ﷺ, were you to rely on God as he rightly should be relied on, he would provide for you as he provides for the birds. The birds don't have sleepless nights worrying about what's going to happen the next day. They just wake up and fly off, and Allah gives them the rizq when they come back. They don't plan too much about what's going to happen. Or the cows in the fields, it's all right, they'll wake up and they'll just graze and Allah will provide for them. It's okay. But we should almost, Allah, the Prophet saying, let's be like that. So the basis of reliance is the heart's knowledge that all matters it always comes back to the state of the heart. Got the knowledge that all matters are in God's hand, whether beneficial or harmful, pleasant or unpleasant. Everything's in the hands of Allah. This is Tawheed. Everything is perfect. Everything is apportioned. Everything is in absolute order. Were all creatures to unite to be a benefit to someone, they would benefit him only in the way in which God has already written for them. It doesn't mean we negate the asbab, the means. As part of our servanthood to Allah, we have to take the means to get this. But we don't rely. We take the means. We don't rely on the means. To go out, we're told to earn our living. We don't just. Yes, we could sit at home and wait for Allah's rizq to come to us, but that's not what Allah commanded us. We have to go out and take the means. Allah can nourish us without us eating if He wants. The Prophet ﷺ would fast and not break his fast. It's unique to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he said, "Don't do what I do." So when Allah gives me sustenance in a way that He doesn't give you. And that He could do that to us as well, but generally speaking, it doesn't happen. Generally, we have to eat and drink. That's because we're just servants of Allah. If Allah wants to, He can break them. He can break the. I could just step out of my house in Edinburgh and just step into this building in Glasgow without having to drive. But normally speaking, we have to take the means. Get in the car and take the motorway. And just it's same with the spiritual path. It's not going to come. Because we believe in miracles and karamat, and it doesn't mean we don't actually have to put the work in. We believe in that stuff, but it's generally the general pattern is it doesn't happen like that. We take the means, and then the karama will come, inshallah. So signs of sincere reliance are that. Again, see how they're all interrelated. It relates to hope and fear. And hope and fear are really they're not really in other than Allah. The sign of this, He upholds the truth in the presence of those in whose regard people usually have hope or fear. That's why the greatest jihad is speaking the truth to a tyrant. We don't worry about our rizq, our sustenance. And again, it doesn't mean we take the means, but we don't worry about it. We're not worried about it. It'll come. As long as you're trying. Maybe you're applying for job after job after job, and you're in that state. It's we naturally get worried, and we get. As long as you're doing your part of the bargain, and part of the means, dua is part of the means. Dua is part of the means. Asking Allah that's part of the means. That's what the servant does. The beggar, take them. Allah. Open your own. Why do we do this when we make dua? Miskeen. I'm sure we could all have stories of people. a Sudanese friend who came to Scotland a few years ago, and he just trying to get jobs and it's hard to get established. It's not easy, but he's made a point. I'm not compromising on my Jummah. No way. I'm not going to. And all the companies are and and now he's doing very comfortable. He's never and whatever happened, he's never compromised on that issue. Someone else might say, well, I'm here, it's struggling, like we have to just get by, but no, this is some things. This is because when you put Allah first, Allah will take care of the other things. And he does not become disturbed in fearful situations. We all have natural fear, we have worries, but underneath that, we should have that rock, that bedrock of just tawakkul, trust in Allah that He will take care of things. And then just the last two, inshallah. Rida, this beautiful state of Ridwan. It's again a beautiful name that we give to our sons or daughters. Ridwan and Ridwana. What a beautiful. If you're pleased with someone, if God's pleased with you, then we're like that golden child that can do no wrong. Allah loves you. Allah is pleased with you. This sweetness. And it's all interrelated. The person who's mutawakkil is content with Allah. And we're told, the Prophet ﷺ told us to make these affirmations morning and evening. رَضِيتُ بِاللَّهِ رَبًّا وَبِالْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا وَبِسَيِّدِنَا مُحَمَّدٍ نَبِيًّا. I'm content with Allah as a Lord, and I'm content with Islam as a religion, and Muhammad as a prophet and a messenger. If you do that, if you internalize that, then you'll taste the sweetness of faith. But even just saying it, the hadith says the one who just says it, Allah will make that happen for them. Allah will bring it about just by affirming something, repeatedly affirming something. Raditu billahi rabba. It's the attribute of the lover to be pleased with the acts of his beloved. And everything around us is fi'l Allah. Everything we see is the act of Allah. It's perfect, it's beautiful. It's the act of the beloved, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even the harm, even the hurt, the pain and the hurt, things which hurt us, that's it's sweet. It's sweet. One of the du'as I think it's one of the Salaf. Give us tranquil souls that tu'minu bi liqa'ik. Give us hearts that are peaceful. Tu'minu bi liqa'ik. They believe in the meeting with you. Wa taqna' bi ata'ik. They're content with whatever you give us. Wa tarda bi qada'ik. And they're content with what you decree. Contentment. And the Prophet ﷺ that al-ghina ghina an-nafs. He said that real wealth is the contentment of the soul. You can have limitless wealth, but no contentment whatsoever. But you can have something very little and you're just content. It's ghina, that's wealth, because you don't need anything more than that. Imam Ghazali says, contentment is to be content inwardly with God's acts and outwardly to do what pleases Him. Again, it's easy. These are all things that are easy to say, harder to realize in reality when these things happen. But these are things to ask for. Ya Allah, give us the rida. Ridwanun min Allahi akbar, Allah says. All the blessings and things of paradise, they all revolve around one thing, which is the ridwan of Allah. You're in the pleasure. You experience the ridwan of Allah. In fact, the guardian of what's the angel who guards paradise is called Ridwan. It's called Ridwan. His name is pleasure, good pleasure of Allah. And then the last one, which is mahabba, love of. They come together, ridwan, connect with him and love. So why should we love Allah? Or do we love Allah? What's the main reason? If you ask yourself, why do I love Allah? No one? Do you not love Allah? Why do we love Allah?
Because He's worthy of it.
He's worthy of it, mashallah. That's a good answer. He's worthy of being. What else?
He's our creator, He loves us.
Yeah, He's our creator. He loves us. He created us. I mean, it boils down to you love anyone who does a good turn to you, treats you well, and Allah has done the greatest of good turns to us, creating us and sustaining us and giving us all these things. But even someone just smiles at you, you feel an inclination towards them. You feel like a warmth. Someone gives you a gift. Someone does you a big favor. You love them more. But Allah, how can you even count the favors of Allah? But also, like you said, because He deserves to be loved, His perfection. We naturally appreciate something which is beautiful and perfect, whether it be like a beautiful scene in nature, or even a human that has beautiful features. We can appreciate the difference between something which is ugly and something which is even a building which is beautifully symmetrical, like the Taj Mahal. Who would say that Taj Mahal is an ugly? It's an eyesore. You should get rid of it. It's just such a beautiful. Anyone can appreciate that. Just the symmetry and look at the arches and the domes, and it's amazing. So how can someone not appreciate that? It's just. But then, all perfection belongs to Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Taj Mahal is only an expression of Allah's perfection anyway. Just like a beautiful scene. Go to Glencoe and you see incredible the sides of the. It's just mind blowing. But it's all from Allah. So we should. It's only natural. We should love the one who gives us all these things. If you love because of what you see, then there's no blessing bestowed upon you or any other creature, but that God has favored you with it purely through His generosity. If you love for perfection, then perfection, majesty, and beauty all belong to Allah alone. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's Tawheed. Everything is from Him. Every single manifestation of beauty and perfection is from Him alone, no one else. In reality, of course, and that's the reality. So the basis of love is knowledge. The more you know, the more you love, the more you appreciate. How can you love someone you don't know, something you don't know? So the more you reflect, the more you think, the more you appreciate, the more you love. Again, it requires something of us. And the fruit of that divine love is witnessing Him. You see, everything is from Him. And what's the definition of making things beautiful? Ihsan. What's the definition of ihsan that we began with? To worship Allah as if you see Him. He's everything is from Him. He is the goal. He is the ma'bud, the one that we're worshipping. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. And just reflect on how many favors He's granted us. How many He sees your ugly behavior and conceals it. He sees your righteous behavior and increases and manifests it. You disobey Him using His favors, and He still gives you, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like one of the rulers said to one of the scholars, righteous. He said, "Give me a reminder." He says, "Okay, if you want to disobey Allah, then go ahead, but don't do it in His kingdom. Go somewhere else and do it. Go somewhere else and disobey Allah. And if you're going to disobey Allah, do it without. But don't. You can do it, but don't use His rizq. Get it from somewhere else. How are you going to do that? Which kingdom are you going to go to? Which rizq are you going to have to disobey Allah with? He's the one that's giving it. SubhanAllah. But he's not withholding them. Even the Netanyahus and he's still providing them. He's still allowing them. They're still going through these, and it's worse. It's worse for them. It's istidraj. He's taking them further and further away, and more hisab. But there's still a mercy that he's allowing them to. Yeah. And that love is it's like it cascades down. You love Allah and you love everything that Allah loves. So there's no separation between love. It's all one love, and that dictates that we love the most beloved, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Love for the messenger. If you love Allah, you love everyone and everything that He loves. You love even everything, the air, everything is from Allah. If you were a lover, you'd be in love with you'd appreciate everything. But how about the things which are higher, the greatest things? The greatest thing in creation, the most beloved thing in creation is the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you're not loving the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's not like I love Allah and then I love the Rasul. Some people say, oh, don't go, brother, you're going too excessive in your love of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's no separation. It's just don't compartmentalize it. Your love of Rasul is the love of Allah. And Allah emphasizes this is in the Quran. The pleasure of Allah is the pleasure of the Rasul. The love of Allah is the love of the Rasul, and the love of all the Salihin and all the awliya and all the people of Allah and every believer and every human being, in fact, and every creature. It's one love. And the Prophet ﷺ made this connection. Love Allah for the favors He grants you. Then love me for the love of Allah. There's no separation. Then love my family, my household for my love. If you love the Rasul, then you love everything that he loves. And there's a distinction between he loved certain things more than others. And we love each other. By loving each other, we gain the love of Allah. For the sake of Allah, we love each other for the sake of Allah. It's a pure, divine. It's beyond just the interest and the worldly things. It's a pure love. That's the love of Allah is guaranteed for those who love each other for my sake. Allah. And the greatest sign of sincere love, again, it's not the love. There has to be consequences. Like you can't just sit back and say, oh, I'm a lover of Allah and Rasul. You haven't done anything, but it hasn't led you to do anything. It hasn't led you to act. That's the false claim. If you love someone, you're obedient to them. You're like incredibly careful not to displease them. That's why we find the people of the spiritual path. They're even more conscious of. They're kind of. We think of the Sufis as not being that. They don't really follow the Sharia much. They're all. They're even more conscious of following the Sharia because it's the Sharia of the one that they love. How would you even contravene the smallest sunnah, let alone this something which is disliked or haram? Because you're like, this is huge. How could I do that? This is my beloved. And then where does all this end up? This is the end. This is a good place to end it. Is this incredible hadith? This is not from a book of. It's not a Sufi saying. This is the hadith Qudsi. Allah Himself is speaking about what happens to someone when they become beloved to Allah. And this should be in every khutbah, in every house, and everyone should know this hadith. It's a hadith. It's in Bukhari. If you didn't know, and it's Allah speaking, saying that if someone shows enmity to a friend of mine, man aadali waliyan, faqad adantuhu bil harb. If someone hurts, look how much this hadith is just overflowing with love. Allah loves a certain person, and He's jealous. You're jealous of someone. Don't touch that person. I love them. So if someone harms or does something to that person, Allah doesn't take it lightly. And then he talks. Allah describes how do you get to this place of wilayah, this place of closeness to Allah? My servant draws close to me or nearer to me with nothing more pleasing to me than what I have made obligatory upon him. The outward obligations. There's no wilayah without the obligations. And obligations include, obviously, what's the first thing we think of? Salah, zakah. Obviously, that includes that. It also includes the inward obligations that we've been talking about. And it includes the outward prohibitions, avoiding the outward prohibitions, and avoiding the inward prohibitions. Everything we've talked about in these sessions. It includes all those things. Okay? So it's more than it appears. But then he continues to draw nearer to me with extra devotions. The more you do, the closer you get to Allah. You've done that. You've established the foundation. Now you're on this. You want to make. You've got the base of your trade. Now you want to make profit. You do more and more. Get closer to Allah. And Ramadan is that time when you fulfill the obligation. Now you're doing the extra. Think about that. Think of Taraweeh as an act of love. Okay, you've done your obligation of fasting. You're going to pray some extra prayers at night, as an act of love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then how's that reciprocated? What happens to that person when they become beloved to Allah? Okay. Again, this is a hadith. This is not some kind of Sufi thing. It is like Allah says, when I love him, I become his hearing with which he hears. Do you not want to be in that category? His sight with which he sees, his hand with which he strikes, his foot with which he walks. Yes, Allah takes over that person. Yeah. How do you even explain? How are we supposed to understand the hadith? Yeah. How can Allah be your hearing? How can Allah be your sight? We can't be literal. Someone who tries to interpret the text in a literal sense is going to run into difficulty. There's figurative, there's metaphor, there's meaning. That's the beauty of art. Allah is indescribably transcendent, but He's also with us constantly, and He's becoming our hearing, and inshallah becoming our sight. How do we balance that? There's this tension between Allah being what's called tashbih, Allah resembling His creation, and tanzih, Allah being transcendent from His creation. How do we kind of Allah? I don't know. You have to. It's about when you've experienced it, you can tell me what it feels like, inshallah. And there's different interpretations of what this means. Some see it as a nur, as a light. You're seeing with the light of Allah. You're hearing with that, or a protection from. You only do what's pleasing to Allah. You only see what's pleasing to Allah. Whatever it is, it's something to think about and aspire to. And then, should he ask me, I will surely grant his request. There's people who's known for their du'as being answered because they're beloved to Allah. Should he ask me for protection, I will surely protect him. So that's to come sort of full circle almost. What are we actually aiming for? If we go back to the first session, what's the aim of all this? Is to get to that place of being mahbub, of being beloved to Allah, of being a wali of Allah. And really, it's because it's no longer you anymore, because you overcome that nafs, overcome that selfishness. It's you're a true servant of Allah. Why does Allah honor the Prophet by calling him abd? That's an honor. That's a crown of honor to be called abd. When all of us have that, inshallah. By the Prophet of Allah, surely Allah honors him by calling him abd. He's a true servant of mine. He's a true Muslim. What does it mean to be a Muslim? You surrendered to Allah. I no longer have any choice or will, and Allah's wind is just carrying me. I don't have any choice anymore. Just surrendered to Allah. Completely in content with Him, completely trusting in Him, completely grateful to Him. Not attached to anything else. And Allah is just taking you. And then when you long and the joy is the meeting. Sayyidina Bilal, on his deathbed, his wife is bemoaning. This is terrible. He said, "No, this is the moment I've been waiting for. This is a moment of ecstasy because I'm going to meet the people that I love." Meeting Allah and meeting the Rasul and the companion. And that's, what did the Prophet say? The fasting person has two reasons to be happy, two sources of joy. The joy of completing the fast and the joy of meeting Allah. With meeting Allah, having done what He's asked you to do. The fasting is mine, and I will give a reward because it's between me and Him. It's a secret act of sincerity, an act of closeness. It's between you, because no one knows whether you got up late and had food or didn't, or whatever it is. It's between you and Allah. And no one knows the state of your fasting when you're in that through the day. What state were you in? Not everyone's the same. Some people are fasting from everything except Allah. So they're always fasting, whether it's Ramadan or not. So a lot of talk. I've talked a lot. It all sounds wonderful, but inshallah, Allah make it reality. Inshallah. It's easy to describe something. It's not something else to taste it and experience it. But I hope that Allah's allowed us to talk about these things, and none of it's impossible. We'll talk about all the high things, but it's at the end of the day, all you have is your daily interactions and worship and everything. And Allah's constantly opening doors for us. And no one's too young, like you guys. You're not too young to become awliya before your parents. And seriously, that's my hope. What do you hope for your children? What do you hope for your children? I want them to have a great career and Yusuf, I want you to be a wali. That's my hope for my son and my children. Okay, inshallah, they can have a career, they can be successful, and it's all good. It's all good. We don't detract from that. But wouldn't you not like to have a son or a daughter who's a waliya of Allah? Why don't we aspire to have that? لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. Again, how many times does Allah say that in the Quran? There's not a shadow of anxiety or hope or fear or anything, or no sadness, because they're in the pleasure of Allah. They're in the shade of Allah. What more do you want? And there's not to say there won't be tests, there won't be difficulties, there won't be all those things. It's life, and life has its ups and downs, and Ya Rab. Never just set your sights high, because who are you dealing with? There's limitless. There's no limit. We limit things. We reduce things. Because our perspective and our this and all that. Take that out and put your sights on that. And that's again, Ramadan is that. وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. When my servants ask about me, I am close. Qareeb. What does that qareeb mean? We measure it? Is it kind of? There's no physical closeness. It's a spiritual closeness. Inshallah. Any questions or any comments before? Ya Allah.
I want to share one brief example.
Bismillah.
During my working life, I did about 37 years. In most of the universities I worked at, it was my secretary who would remind me for Jummah.
MashaAllah.
It's this time for you to go for your Jummah.
Is she Muslim, or he or she Muslim? Or a Muslim. MashaAllah.
Or around the Muslims.
Allah. MashaAllah. Ya Rab. Anyone else want to share anything? Inshallah. So just inshallah, there's a framework that we can, inshallah. That's really what I wanted to. All these things are there's no end to the discussions on them, but at least inshallah you have a framework. Just go back to the sessions if you attended all three. The framework around understanding what the nafs and the qalb and all that, understanding the barriers and the sicknesses, and then understanding these stations and things that we aspire to have, and asking for them, seeking them, going deep into them, swimming in them, immersing ourselves in them. Inshallah, make us Allah accept everything, inshallah. All this, it's not just words that we've said, inshallah. It's a sincere turning to Allah. It's a sidq tawajjuh ila Allah. Everything in every state, Ya Rab, you've allowed us to hear these things and talk about these things, and you're too kind to turn us away by not allowing us to attain these things, not just the beginnings, but the endings of these stations, the high stations, Ya Rab. It's not difficult for you. That you can make us all amongst your elect servants, the awliya, or the beloved ones to you, the siddiqeen, the salihin, Ya Rab, Ya Rab. People that are beloved to you, people who have succeeded in overcoming the lowest self and attaining that purification, and non-attachment, and that closeness to you, Ya Rab, that love and that rida. And now not just ourselves, but all those around us and all those that we have a true following of the Prophet in all his states, in all his, as much as we can, without limitations. Ya Rabbi Alameen. Ya Rabbi Alameen. We're just servants. All we have is what you've given us, and we raise our hands in dua and ask you, Ya Rabbi Alameen. You're the ghani, you're the one has no need, and we're the fuqara, we're the ones in absolute need at every time, allow us to realize that need. Turn to you in every situation, every time, Ya Rabbi Alameen, Ya Rabbi. Make us amongst those who blessed with knowledge of you, ma'rifah, on muhabba, love of you, from you, Ya Rabbi Alameen. Remove the veils that stop us and the obstacles that stop us from getting to that place, Ya Rabbi Alameen, Ya Rabbi Alameen, Ya Rabbi Alameen. Bless us in what remains of Sha'ban, and bless us in Ramadan, and bless us in what remains of our lives, that we have that longing to meet you, that burning desire to be with you and to be with your Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to the point we meet and we're elevated and we keep growing and growing and growing and elevating to the point of that meeting. And that meeting is a moment of absolute joy and bliss, that we enter into with no fear and no sadness, and we enter into the high ranks, Ya Rabbi. I mean, all those around us who are struggling, Ya Allah, help give them assistance and ease, and those who are not Muslim, guide them to La ilaha illallah, our families, and those who are not on the path, and bring them onto the path, Ya Rabbi Alameen, Ya Rabbi Alameen. You're too generous, you're too kind. Your invitation is to all and to everyone. And you sent your messenger as a mercy to all of creation. So allow us to embody that and appreciate and live by that mercy, Ya Rabbi Alameen, Ya Rabbi Alameen, Ya Rabbi Alameen, Ya Akram Alameen, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, ask Allah for all the good things our Prophet asked for. Seek refuge from all the bad things he sought refuge from, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. All those that are suffering as we speak, the people, the broken people, the starving people, the injured people, the bereft people. Ya Rabbi, Ya Allah, these are the fuqara, these are the people that raise them to you and bring them close to you, Ya Rabbi. Face all that hardship with ease, Ya Rabbi. In this life and the next, Ya Rabbi. ربنا اللهم نسألك كمال المعرفة والمحبة والهدى والتوفيق والتقى والعفاف والغنى والرضا واليقين، وتجمع لنا بين خيرات الدنيا والدين كمان السلامة مثل ظاهر معك يا رب العالمين. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم، وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون، والسلام على المرسلين، الحمد لله رب العالمين. تقبل منا بسير الفاتحة.